Hey everybody, it's Mark here again, and I've got with me Sophie Howard. Sophie was on a previous call with me where she was very, very generous in her knowledge. I'll link to that in the description below as well, where she was sharing all about how she runs such a highly successful online business through Kindle. So she makes a lot of sales of books on Amazon Kindle without having to write a word of them herself, and she's doing extremely, extremely well, as are her students. And in today's video, I've got her back here again. This time we're going to talk about the topic of how to three big tips for making over $200 per day with Amazon Kindle. Now, Sophie's making a lot more than $200 a day on Kindle, but this is a goal that I think a lot of people set themselves. Around 200 a day is where you feel like you can quit your day job and this can become a full-time thing as opposed to a side hustle. So it's a really good aspirational goal for somebody that gets into Kindle. And so that's why I wanted to get you back on here with this challenge of just giving us like the three biggest tips for getting to that point. And also don't forget, guys, we are running a workshop shortly with Sophie that'll be linked to in the description below, where she spends like an hour going over how to make money from Kindle step by step. So if you're really interested in this stuff, make sure you check that out as well. But first of all, welcome back, Sophie, and I'm really keen to hear what your three big tips are.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me back. So there's definitely, I've had my own experience, but I've also watched a bunch of my students have the same opportunity presented to them, and some have jumped on it and ran and had great results, and others have sat back and waited. And so really, from watching all those students and my own experience, my first tip's really about jumping in and taking action, because if you launch no books, you have no new income. It's just a zero result by doing nothing. That's the only thing that's certain in a new business. And so I think just building up to that level of confidence where you're ready to jump in, start the program, start the learning, start your first book, upload your first book, and trying just to subdue any of those perfectionist tendencies that can really just stop people in their tracks, and they end up with nothing because they're waiting for something perfect. So it's really difficult depending on your personality, really. It's sort of a bit of a hardwired thing, but my big tip is really just this bias towards action and not putting too much pressure on this first book being a Pulitzer Prize winning bestseller. It just needs to be published in demand, meet the criteria that we can teach you of the steps to follow. So then you'll have confidence, you'll know the steps, you'll know the terminology, you'll have gone through opening your Kindle account, you'll have hired a writer to write it, you'll have uploaded that first book. And whether it makes you $1 million or $10, you'll have the biggest possible learning exercise, much more than sitting watching training videos or waiting for the perfect book for a year or two. Just get stuck in and take action and get started. And it's so much fun once you're in, and so scary sitting on the sidelines. So don't sit on the sidelines, take a deep breath and get in and get going.
I think that makes total sense, though. It's kind of like let's say you're teaching a child how to ride a bike. The easiest thing to do is actually just get them riding, and whether they fall off or not doesn't matter. If they're on the bike for long enough, sooner or later they're pedaling. But if you were to sit there, and I know that no one's going to do this, but if you were to sit there and have somebody, a child, watch videos of other kids biking and sit there pointing out all the other kids biking and then try to expect them to be perfect the moment they sit on the bike, that's not going to work. You learn better by doing. So by getting a non-perfect first book out there is what you're saying, you actually learn everything you need to know so that all the rest of your books are going to be so much better. But you've got to just get out there and get the thing done for the first one. That's your first big tip?
Definitely, yeah. There's no point just sort of watching and watching and watching. There's kind of getting on the court and playing the game and not having too high expectations of yourself, but just taking action. And you'll soon have this new terminology and new friends and new habits in your week of what you do, and it's a bit of a shift. So just start making that shift, and before you know it, that's your new normal, and before you know it, there'll be an income stream there thanking you for that work you've put in and the action you took early on. But no starting, no result. So really get that mind geared up to get started with some decisions, make some decisions and get going.
Brilliant. And what would you say is tip number 2?
I think growth is essential for all online, well, all businesses obviously, but with this type of business, it's easy to do your learning, well, not easy, but the way to start is you do the training and then you get your first book going. And then what I see the really successful people do is they just have a mindset around growth and they keep going. So they are nice and steady with the workflow. They keep the new books coming out. So you have to be fairly prolific if you want a big income stream off this. You can't just do one book and hope for the best. You've got to keep going. So creating the time in your week to grow your business, being really good with your finances so that some of the profits that it's generating, you reinvest back into growing more books. And so before you know it, this is all compounding, eighth wonder of the world, compound interest. But if you're sucking money out and just buying a yacht or Lamborghinis or whatever, because you've had a good first year, and then you drain the coffers dry because you're not reinvesting in the business, it's going to be a shorter lived and much smaller business. But a little bit of patience, reinvesting profits will really serve you well in the medium and long term, even though it takes a little bit more discipline in the short term. So being patient, maybe even keep the day job longer than you think you need just to get that business off to a flying start, hire a great team, get some help, get loads and loads of books going, get them, I'll talk more in a moment about some of these income multipliers, but really just really structure deliberate growth mode until you hit the numbers that you need. It won't happen just by being too passive. You're going to have to put a bit of oomph behind your game plan here and keep it going over quite a while. And then that hard work will pay off, but don't give up too soon just because you've had some early success. Keep it going, keep that momentum, that really good feeling, keep tracking your sales month on month and watch them go up and up. Don't plateau, just keep going. Awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That I mean, it makes total sense. Like the whole point in this, if you're going to scale, is that you're basically you need to keep putting out more of these. You've got to plant at least enough money seeds, like seeds that grow into an income, if you want the opportunity to be able to then reinvest from those profits. And then those profits are basically like taking those trees and growing more seeds from those. Like, in short, you've got to have that cycle of reinvestment in your plan for running this kind of business if you want it to grow into something big. And that makes total sense. And that's what you've done in your particular business.
Yeah. There'd be nothing worse than not quite reaching the bar where you can quit the day job, or you kind of get to a certain level and it's nice, but if you just did a bit more, it's all you need. It's really nice to just get over that hump. And actually, the bigger it is, the easier it is to run, because there's more profit there to pay an operations manager to manage all the writing and the cover designs. It's hard if you're half doing it yourself and half growing it. There's a certain hump where you get just a much easier ride. So keep going till you get that momentum. You're really confident with what needs to be done and what the standards are and standard operating procedures. Like you're a business owner working on it. Yep. And then you've got a bunch of people helping you out working in it. And, there's all sorts of tech and things that make life easier for us in the modern online age, cover designs and freelancers. It's really easy to work with all these people online. Yes. And get the stuff done that you need. Advertising, all of that can be done for you, but you need your business to be a certain sort of size to support a team that then frees up your time as well as giving you the income stream. So don't give up too soon, and really, just go for the big goals here, because the opportunity is so wide open. You might kick yourself later. Well, you will kick yourself later if you don't really go for it while the going's so good.
No, absolutely. And what would you say is tip number 3?
I think if you don't chase all the income earning potential for each book you launch, you're wasting an opportunity. So what I call these income multipliers are taking each individual book, say you've written a book on how to train a puppy, you then would do that book, not just as an ebook, but also spend another $10 and get your cover designer to do a paperback cover and upload it as a paperback as well. It's hardly any incremental cost, but it might be double your sales. And then you can pay a narrator to narrate this book and sell it on Audible. And then it might be double those sales again. And you never know quite which ones are going to take off. But if, as standard, you do that for all your books, you've got 3 more income streams, or 2 more income streams. You're up to 3 there with 3 different formats. Then you can slice and dice this yet again by doing different languages. So in Italy, I have great sales, just low competition, really obscure books, just flying. So I wouldn't know that unless I tried. And so part of that discipline of having all those income multipliers on every book you start, some will really streak off and start to really add to that bottom line of monthly profits. So 3 different formats, up to 5 different languages, you've just massively upped your income potential without massively increasing your cost of producing those little digital assets that are going to go out and earn for you. So there's a few more moving parts to do that, a little bit more discipline and a few more steps of the process than just doing one format, one language. But if you do that, you'll be surprised by how much that can grow and compound and just then give you more income to grow more books, more people in your team helping you keep scaling that without you doing all the hard work.
That's fantastic. Now I heard you say it's only an extra $10 or so to make a book cover for a print version. So that's practically no extra costs. But it will cost probably a bit more if you're going to do an audio edition or foreign languages. I'm not saying it's cost as much as making the original book, but it'll cost you something. So do you do that for every book anyway, or do you recommend people do those editions if the book's proving to make more sales, like do it for your better books?
Well, I try and pick book topics at the very start of my process where it's going to suit all 3 formats. So I think I said on a previous interview, like a cookery book doesn't make a good audio book, or something that's a nice coffee table book with lovely photographs. That's just not going to work as an audio book. So I like to choose a topic that suits all 3 formats, and most nonfiction books do really. Then when it comes to the foreign language stuff, I just do a little extra wave of book topic research using a research tool that just tells me what the demand is for those main keywords in those other markets. So I don't absolutely as standard do every book in every language, but I might pick 2 or 3 European markets, or all 5 or none, just depending on how much demand and how much competition there is. So you don't need to speak those languages to do the research. You can see what the keywords are and just check out what the monthly sales are, and then sort of tweak your own strategy a bit from there. But the translators are very low cost, and I've sometimes been really pleasantly surprised by one that I didn't think would sell so well, suddenly just taking off in another language, that I think it's actually really worth doing. There's so low competition. So it's not like there's much more demand, it's just the competition's so low.
Competition's very, very low. Yeah. Oh no, that sounds very, very exciting. And it makes sense. I mean, things that take off in English tend to be, for most things on the internet, tend to be 3-4 years behind when you're in the other languages, sometimes even 6-7 years behind in terms of competition. So, you know, that's very, very exciting for people. And, you know, for people wanting to know more, if you haven't already, I'm going to keep a link in the description below to a workshop with Sophie, where you can discover all of this plus more step by step in detail about how this business model works, so that you can make a decision for yourself whether earning a passive income either as a side hustle or potentially as a full-time income is something for you from Amazon Kindle. So Sophie, is there anything you want to say about what people might discover on that particular workshop?
Well, I've put it together so that we can spend some time walking through the steps of what's involved, just to sort of demystify this process a bit, so you can see how it's done and what you have to do to be successful at this. I think you'll be surprised how little you actually have to do yourself in terms of writing, none, and things like cover design. We outsource everything like that. So it's really good for you to see exactly what the steps are and how it's just a really neat business model. There's so little you have to do given the size of the opportunity, and all the bits that you outsource are very process-based. There's not a lot of creativity. It's very simple, very quick to get started. I love that you can just get started, do the workshop the next day, start the training modules the same week, order your first book, the next week have it up for sale, maybe, a couple of weeks, however long. Certainly the quickest turnaround to seeing results and just getting that nice positive feedback loop. And the dopamine levels will kick in. You'll have this really good feel-good factor by seeing something, acting on it, and then seeing the results. And there's so many businesses that you've got to have such techie skills or creative skills or huge upfront investment to get going. It's like this huge barrier to get in the game, but this is a really fast entry to get going. And I really like that. So if you join the workshop, you'll see what it takes to get going. And I'd love to show you the steps and show you what I've done to make a success of this. But it's been a really enjoyable business model. It's never been terribly stressful. I've had other businesses where I've had lots of staff or Facebook ads or other things that drive me potty, dealing with, shipments stuck in ports, suppliers with out of stocks, all that stuff. It's a real juggling act.
No
and
inventory.
This one's so much
That's brilliant.
yeah. And you don't even need to deal with the customers. I mean, the joy of Amazon is that all the customers are there searching, and there's data telling you what they're searching on. So it's a very mechanical, it's a very unracy business, really. It's quite processy. Not that I'm a very process person, but I have developed processes for this business because it's the way to be consistent with the results. So that's what I can teach you, and I'd love to. So hopefully we'll see you on the workshop.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. And for everyone listening, take action with what you learn. Turn up to the workshop, check it out and decide for yourself whether this is something for you. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye.